Riley asks, what is one thing on either side of the ball that made you think that's the standard? Ira, you've been covering this group for a long time. You've seen the standard, and you've seen a whole lot of not the standard. What do you think?
I mean, the first thing that stands out to me is, I mean, if you're out there, it's just the size, and everybody that comes out there says the same thing. I mean, it's the size of not just it's mostly the linemen, but it's not only the linemen. I mean, it's the DBs, like you said earlier. It's not, you're not bringing in 5'9", 5'10" DBs and asking them to play big. You're bringing in 6'1" guys and guys with long arms, really good measurables. So that would be my thing. I think usually when the coaches, or today Shaheem Brown was talking about, or it was yesterday, Shaheem was talking about the standard, and when they bring young players in, they have to learn what the standard is here at Florida State. And I mean, I think the most obvious example is, man, you can't walk between drills. You can't do things kind of half-assed. An example, I think perfect example would be, not to put him down, but in the spring, Hykeem Williams wasn't ready physically, conditioning wise, to go through practice the way they want him to. And you see such a stark difference now compared to the spring, right? He looks like a different guy. So to me, those are the two things, just the size of people, but then also just the way, the effort level between drills and during drills.
Yeah, Briley, I'll answer this and say the interest level in watching the 2s and the 3s play in practice, that's different. Like, now I care, like, it's not that I didn't write stuff down in the notebook, but you're like, oh, you know what? I want to see how, and Mike said, Norvell said on the record that he would, move the quarterbacks around to put them in different situations and expose them to different situations like he did in the spring. So, all right, Duffy's coming off the sidelines. Let's see what he does with this group, or let's see what Brock Glenn, man, Glenn's in there. Or Tate Rodemaker, moving up with maybe the first group. It's just, when you watch the quarterbacks with these different guys, and then you see the different waves of, linebackers. Blake Nicholson is now somebody that I pay close attention to when he's on the field. I don't know the last time I cared about a freshman linebacker and said, what's this kid going to be? Same thing with the defensive backs. It's just, there's a lot more to choose from. Matt, do you have an answer to this?
Yeah, I mean, I have one thing from now and then one thing from when I used to watch Florida State as a kid, if that counts. But I would say for me, it's how Norvell yells at them when they do get a one-handed catch. Even if it's an amazing, great grab, Norvell is still in their face, chewing them out, like, no, you need 2 hands. Like, that's a big thing, to where it's the little things matter and the little things add up. And I think that's something we've seen a lot of kind of as this team's gotten better. And as I was a kid, I remember when I first watched Florida State, it was, wow, they hit hard, like really hard. I feel like that's something over the years of Willie into maybe beginning Norvell, but now it's not, but it just kind of lost that
reality.
Stephen writes, I haven't heard much in regards to Hykeem Williams. How has he looked at practice? Well, Corey said he's a bum earlier on the show today. In the first hour.
Incorrect.
I think that's pretty much what he said. I translated it properly.
That's not true.
You'll have to go back and listen for yourself.
Right. Where I said that I didn't think. In fact, I'm pretty sure the words that came out of my mouth.
You wrote a whole column about what a bum he is.
No, so I think look, he's been better than he was in the spring.
Relegated further down the depth chart because they are markedly better at the position.
Yeah, he's made some plays. Now, he's not going up against the best all the time that Florida State has to offer from the secondary, but he is making plays, and he is showing
in better shape,
the physicality and the tools that were made him so attractive when he was in high school. But he is not right now as good as Van Drabius. That fair, Ira?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
He ain't a bum, though.
No, he's not a bum. I was teasing.
I know.
Jim McCloud, in your opinion, Ira, who will have a bigger impact this season, Destyn Hill or Winston Wright?
I want your opinion too, buddy. But that's a tough one. 2 or 3 months ago, I probably would have said Destyn Hill, because I was hearing really good stuff when he got to campus, how impressive he was in workouts. And I still just wasn't sure if Winston Wright, you hope it's going to come back, but we just didn't know. I thought he's looked really good. I know you and Corey have talked about it on Wake Up as well. I think Winston Wright's looked good. I mean, he's a 5th-year senior, 6-year senior, or something like that. Very veteran guy. Looks like he's fully healthy and more explosive. I could see maybe Destyn Hill emerging as the year goes on, but I like what I've seen from Winston Wright. And I think that veteran leadership might get him on the field a lot more, at least in the first half of the season, and then kind of see how things play out. What about you?
On your ballot, Ira had Destyn Hill 34th on his preseason top 40. He had Winston Wright 33rd.
If it wasn't for the health concerns, I would have Winston much higher. But you and I, were we the only ones that had Destyn in our top 40s?
I think so.
Because he didn't make the top 40, but I think you and I were the only ones that had him in there.
I left Winston off of my ballot because I just thought what we'd seen in the spring, or like the lack of what we'd seen in the spring, might be something that just was going to be the status quo for him. But if I had to like revote, Kevin Noles would be the first guy. I'd be like, oops, I messed up on this one, because I left Noles off my ballot because of apparently what he said on the. Right. I heard it third person. I didn't actually watch Micah Pittman's vlog, but apparently on his vlog, he said, like, I'm going to be out halfway through the season. So I'm like, all right, well, then that means, 6-7 games, we don't get him. So I'm not going to put him on my top 40. But Kevin Noles out there playing football and doing well. But Winston Wright to me has been a very encouraging development. I wasn't expecting that. Maybe it's expectations, and that's why I'm feeling the way I am. But he's looked quite well these first 2 days that they've been in shells. So I will probably edge him just ahead of Destyn this season because of that sort of experience that he has. But man, when it's all said and done, they're not going to get nearly as much out of Winston Wright as they'll get out of Destyn Hill in the years to come. But I think Destyn Hill's name will ring out louder and for longer in Florida State circles than Winston Wright. But for this season, I'll take Winston Wright.
And it'll be really two stories for Florida State fans to root for. Destyn Hill, of course, had to sit out 2 years, is finally getting to play. Winston Wright, his career was in jeopardy when he got in that car accident 18 months ago or so. He didn't know if he'd be able to play football again. If he has that, success, you're just happy for him and his family. And I actually met his dad in the spring. Super nice guy. Winston seems like a super nice guy. Like you're definitely rooting for those two guys to, kind of find their roles in that sea of Amazons that Florida State has at wide receiver.
Anthony Galloway. Hey guys, great job as always. How have special teams looked? Any emphasis on it? Got a feeling that special teams is going to play a big role in the LSU game.
Kickers look pretty good, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Fitzpatrick and Keltner have both looked good. Maybe combined, maybe each missed maybe one field goal, I think, that we've seen about. Both been really solid and kicking it well. Like even they're, not just making their kicks, but they seem to be kicking with authority and, getting a lot of distance on them. So they've looked good. Everything we've seen so far. Alex Mastromanno is now his fourth year now as the punter. So I think you know what you got there. The return game, there's some questions because you lost Micah Pittman. They're trying out a bunch of different guys on punt returns. Destyn Hill, Keon Coleman, Lawrence Toafili, a few other guys are getting looks at punt returns. They got a bunch of guys taking turns at kickoff returns. One thing that's been interesting to me about the special teams, just watching some of what they do, and they always put a big emphasis on it, Anthony. It's one of Mike Norvell's big things he focuses on. They do several periods a day of special teams work. Is a lot of these freshman defensive backs, if you look, the one thing that's changed dramatically in college football from 20 or 30 years ago till now is it used to be like backups played on special teams and maybe freshmen, a lot of backups, not your best players. But, I think when Jimbo got here, they really went hard and heavy, and you'd see Telvin Smith out there and LaMarcus Joyner out there. And all the studs were all the studs were out there on kickoff coverage and punt returns and punt coverage. Well, Mike Norvell's one of those as well. So they've had a lot of those guys out there, but I have a feeling some of these talented young DBs are going to get out there. I think you're going to want to get, Conrad Hussey and Edwin Joseph and some of these KJ Kirkland and Quindarius Jones. And I know you're carrying the banner for Quindarius, but he's a good banner to carry. He's impressive. But don't you think those guys are going to see a lot of time on special teams? Because they're every bit the athlete than these older guys are. You're not getting a drop off from athletically from most of the starters to those guys.
Yeah, man, they incorporate so many guys though. Like DJ Lundy's out there making plays when it comes to special teams, but it feels like that's like a natural progression for those guys to get them involved early because they do have such high upside in the short term. Because we see them making plays in 11-on-11, on 7-on-7. These 3-star guys that might not have been that highly touted, but they seem to be, again, man, their evaluations, the fits. It's exciting to think about. I keep saying that. I need to stop saying exciting, but it's encouraging to know that they've hit on these guys pretty quickly. It seems like, and the defensive backs, when it comes to the freshmen, they've been the first ones to really kind of make an impact, because I mean, your linebackers probably, I think like DJ Lundy might be ahead of Blake Nicholson or Dylan Brown Turner in terms of being like a special teams contributor. It feels like, because to your point, Ira, like they're not putting guys they can't trust out there on special teams anymore. Everyone's putting the cream of their crop they have out there. So,
real quick story. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. I may have, but there's probably somebody watching this I haven't told the story to before.
You know how many hours we've spent alone in a car, Ira?
A lot. So I probably told you the story.
But it's fine. I love your stories. I'll hear it again.
So when Leon Washington was here, and he was obviously a great punt returner, I asked him if he had ever seen T-Buck's return, the fake return, the full up from Pascagoula, and he had never seen it before. I think he maybe had heard about it. Yeah, so we went up. Well, not the. This is the. It wasn't the fake against Clemson. It was the one where he pretended like he was going to fair catch it.
Sorry, I'm talked out of school. My bad. I love you.
No problem.
Carry on.
T-Buck did the fair catch against Syracuse, and then he took off and ran it back. And so I took Leon. Actually, the film staff let me and Leon go up and watch it up there. They had the old footage, and the first thing Leon, like, we watched the play, and I was like, "Man, how cool was that?" And Leon goes, "They didn't have any athletes on special teams back then, did they?" Because and you watch it, it really was a bunch of just like, it looked like a bunch of tight ends trying to run down Terrell Buckley, and it didn't go real well for him. So he, it was pretty funny to hear him say how much the game has changed, and that was 20 years ago. So imagine, how much it is now. I mean, the reason there's not a lot of punt returns and kick returns for touchdowns is because everybody's putting their best players out there now.